Hi everyone, it's Rona May from Kamuso Kai in Calgary. I've got something a little bit different for you all this round. Steve Senpai from the Edmonton Iaido Club has prepared a sword maintenance video, a tutorial for everyone, and he's going to go through maintaining your bokuto as well as your iaito. Without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Steve Senpai. Please enjoy the video.
Hey everyone, it's Steve with Edmonton Iaido. What we're going to do today is a brief tutorial on sword maintenance for Iaido. We're going to concentrate on working on a boken and an aluminum alloy Iaido blade. Now, if you haven't already, head over to Rona May's channel at Budo no Tabi and take a look at the What's in My Maintenance Kit video. That's going to show you a lot of the tools that we're going to be using today for this video right here. Once you've done that, come back and we'll get going. So, first thing we're going to do is we are going to do basic maintenance on a common red oak boken. Now, this particular model that I'm using, I've had for quite a few years, and it's had quite a few adventures. Now, one of the things that we keep asking people to do, usually at the beginning of practice, at least we try to get into the habit of asking people at the beginning of practice, is to check their weapon to make sure that there's no defects. In the case of a boken, what we're looking for is dings, chips, scratches. We're looking for deep scars. We're also looking for splinters and cracks that could turn into splinters, because we don't want you to get hurt. We don't want you to hurt anybody else in the class. So what we're going to do with this guy is I have a scratch up here that is starting to turn into a bit of a crack. It's this angled guy right here. Now this is from an impact from another weapon from a couple of months ago, at least one of the last times we were able to have a physical in-person practice. Now, before we get started on that, one of the other key things that we typically worry about is the suba. This is prone to rattle loose every once in a while. And on a boken, it's really easy to fix. If you find while practicing, after a while, it starts rattling loose, starts sliding around on you, push the rubber subodome stopper back down, just so it's cinched up, and then once again, it's ready to go. If that doesn't do it, you may have to replace the stopper. If you do need to, talk to your senpai, talk to your sensei, find out which suppliers they'd rather have you go through, somebody that they trust, preferably, to get you replacement equipment if necessary. If you are not in a position to do so, budget, shipping, there's all sorts of reasons. What you can do is you can get a thick rubber band, any common office grade thick rubber band, or off of produce even, would be enough. Wrap the rubber band around and then mash the existing subodome on top of it, and that'll help keep it secured. Now, as far as this crack goes, what we're going to use to remedy that is basic 100 grit sandpaper. We don't need anything fancy. This stuff is available at any common hardware store. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to lightly sand down that scratch here. Now this will take off some of the finish, and that's perfectly fine. We're not concerned about the lacquer or the finish. We're concerned mainly about avoiding somebody getting an oak splinter in their hand, or in the face, or in the eye. So sand that down, and then we're going to use our Nukigumi rice paper to wipe the area. Take care of that. Now, there's a little bit of that scratch still left, so I'm going to give it another pass with the sandpaper. And there we go. So now what I've got is a little bit of oak sawdust on my workbench. But as you can see here, from this bare patch, the line here has now been smoothed out. It's still somewhat visible, but it's a lot smoother. There's no crack, and that problematic divot that I'm worried about isn't going to be a problem. Now that we've taken the finish off of this in the sanding process, we're going to need to do something about the overall condition of it, because this is Alberta and it's kind of dry here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take another piece of our Nukigumi rice paper, crumple it up a little bit, give it some texture. Now there's a reason why we do this with this particular model of rice paper that I'm using. This stuff is actually off a roll of Japanese art rice paper. This particular roll I bought about 10-ish years ago for $25 at a local art supply store, and it's lasted me a long, long time. As opposed to the official stuff that you get from any of our martial arts supply places, where you get a pack of the textured rice paper for somewhere between $15 to $20 a pack. So if you're budget conscious, a roll of art rice paper will do just fine. All you have to do is just cut it down to size, crumple it up a little bit to simulate the texture that you're missing out on with the more expensive stuff. Otherwise, it works just fine. Now, we're going to take our rice paper. We're going to apply some choji oil. This is the same oil that comes with the sword maintenance kit. It is a light mineral oil and clove oil combination, and it has a very distinct aroma to it. A lot of people find it a very pleasing scent. Some people find it mildly irritating. So we're just going to apply some oil to the area that we sanded here and down the overall length of bokeh. Now this, again, because we live in such a dry climate, will help give bokeh a little bit of oil to prevent future drying and cracking and hopefully avoid splintering as we go forward. Especially now that it's October and we're coming up on the winter months. I'm just going to take another piece here and give it we're going to take the felt and give it a wipe. Just wipe down any of the excess oil. Now again, this felt pad comes with the sword maintenance kit and is, like I said, it's used to wipe down any excess oil that might build up from oil in your blade. Now that we've got that taken care of, we take another closer look at the area that we sanded down and worked on, and right here we have a very difficult time seeing where the original defect was, which means everything is working exactly as I wanted. So now, bokeh maintenance is done. We can put it away. Take your saya. Very important. Place the saya on the end of the blade. Push the saya down the length of the bokeh. You'll notice my right hand didn't move. Some people, especially when we're new at this, we're excited. We sometimes see people in movies do this, where they'll place the saya and the kisaki, the tip together, and then this will happen. Please don't do that. You'll put excess wear and tear on the weapon, and you'll run the risk of having to do maintenance more frequently from damaging the blade. So, once again, just like doing noto, place the saya on the end of the blade, slide the saya down the length of the blade, and you're good. Whenever possible, use two hands to put your weapon away. Let's worry about the Iaido. Now, this one is the zinc aluminum alloy one that I use for my regular day-to-day practice. The only exception is while practicing here in quarantine in my basement because I don't have the ceiling height for a 2.5 shaku blade, so I've opted for a bokken instead for my home practice. But normally, this is my day-to-day practice weapon. Going back to the idea of checking your fittings and checking your weapon quality before practice, this is an essential habit that people should get into. Again, we like to remind people, but it should be a habit that you do on a regular basis. And what we're talking about with an Iaido is we want to make sure that the blade itself is straight, that there's no bends, warps, or cracks. If there's cracks in the metal, it is not safe to use. You need to put it away, you need to talk to your senpai and sensei, and find an alternative to either get it repaired or find an alternative for replacement. But the most common issues that we have with an Iaido, the tsuba will rattle loose every once in a while, or the mikugi pin that holds the blade into the tsuka will sometimes snap. Now this is going to be difficult to see because I have a black mikugi pin right there that's in a black tsuka with black wrappings, and I'm wearing all black behind it. You can kind of see that there's a theme developing here. But every once in a while, that mikugi pin will break or crack, and those would need to be replaced. So starting with the mikugi pin, the way to do that is, in your sword maintenance kit, you will have this little brass hammer here. This guy has a pin in the top of the hammer that screws out, and you use this pin set against the mikugi and use the hammer to tap the pin loose. Then, once you've got the defective mikugi pin tapped loose out of your Iaido, measure how long it is, and then order takeout. Because once you've ordered takeout, clean your utensils, because now all of a sudden you have a ready supply of replacement mikugi pins. So clean these thoroughly, measure how long your mikugi pin is, cut off the appropriate length from your takeout utensil, and sand it down with your sandpaper. Use the same hammer, tap it back into place. And that is the quickest and easiest way to replace that pin. What do you do if the tsuba is rattling loose? For that, we use common dental floss. Tear off a long strip of dental floss, and what you're going to do is, now this particular sword doesn't need it because the tsuba is set correctly. It's not moving anywhere, which is awesome. But normally what we would do is we would work the dental floss in between the fittings on the front side of the tsuba here. It's very difficult to see, but it's on the front side of the tsuba here, and also on the back side here. So you're going to wind the dental floss in there until it's nice and snug and the tsuba doesn't rattle or move anymore. And then take a sharp knife, cut off any excess, and that part of the maintenance is done. It's once again safe for use during class. And again, if you have an issue with that, if you're unable to do it, if you need help with it, ask your senpai and your sensei for assistance. That is your best resource on site for any issues that you have. Past that, what we're going to do now is take care of the actual blade maintenance itself. One of the questions that comes up fairly frequently is how frequently should we be doing our weapon maintenance? And there is no real hard and fast answer to that. That depends entirely on how often you practice, what environmental conditions are you working with, and what metal is your blade made out of. So, how often do you practice? If you're having, the 2-3 hour long weekend practice, and you've got another hour and a half 3 times a week, you're putting a lot of mileage on your blade. You're going to have to clean it more frequently than somebody who's attending, say, an hour here, hour and a half there, 2 hours every 2 weeks. So that's going to increase the frequency. If you live in a climate that's super, super dry, like the prairie region, or super humid, like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, any of the coastal areas, Atlantic Canada, you are going to face some challenges with keeping the blade corrosion free. Humidity is a factor, so please be aware of that. Now, as far as the metal goes, when I purchased this Iaido, I bought it from one of our regular suppliers, so I knew exactly what I was getting. I was getting a zinc aluminum alloy at 2.5 shaku in length and 730 grams in weight. Exactly what I expected. Sometimes you'll find, a less reputable source. You'll find an online buy or sell group. You'll find somebody advertising, an authentic Japanese sword on social media. And it'll be such an amazing deal, you just can't pass it up. But now the problem is you don't know exactly what it's made out of. If it is a steel blade, if it has an edge or can hold an edge, it will need to be cleaned after every use. There is a huge difference. The aluminum alloy blades like this one can be cleaned periodically. The steel blades must be cleaned after every use because the oil and sweat from your hands will corrode the steel. That is just chemistry. That's how it works. And that's what you have to deal with. Now, how do you tell what metal your sword is made out of? There's a very quick and easy test for that. And for that, you use this, a common fridge magnet. In fact, this one came off of my freezer. So if it's an aluminum blade, magnet will not stick. So place the magnet on it, and as soon as I move the sword, magnet comes off. However, if we test it with a steel blade, like this one. Now, this one happens to be my original Iaido. I picked this one up secondhand, and I knew it was a steel blade going in, but to double check, we have the steel blade, we have the magnet, and when you present the magnet to the blade, it will stick. That means this has sufficient steel content that if it's not sharp, it can be sharpened. And that also means that this sword must be cleaned after every single use. Now, once we're done doing the maintenance on the Iaido, I'll be cleaning this one as well. Also, once again, proper sheathing. Just like Noto, place the saya on the sword, you slide the saya down the blade. And then two hands, when possible, to put the sword away. Now that we've determined this sword only needs periodic maintenance, which is perfectly fine, we're going to do that periodic maintenance now. In my case, what I find is when I do Noto, when I lay my sword across the back of my hand and I'm doing that Noto action, if I find that it's not sliding as smooth as I like, if I'm getting a bit of jitter or shake, if I'm finding dead spots where it's not sliding at all, that's when I know it's time to re-oil. So to do that, we're going to take this. It's a ball of Uchiko powder. This is, pardon me, this is ground up volcanic stone powder. It's used to polish the steel blades. It's also used to lift oil and contaminants off the blade. So what we're going to do is we're going to give this a light dusting down the sword and then on the other side. Now you'll notice, when possible, I'm holding it with the cutting edge away from me. We always want to make sure that the cutting edge is away from us, because even though I know this is dull, I know this does not have a sharpened edge on it. I still need to keep in mind that it functions. It has that appearance. It's going to be a sharpened edge one day when I start practicing with the shinken on a regular basis. So now I'm going to take my Nukigumi paper. This one's a bit smooth. I crumple it up a little bit to give it some texture. Straighten it back out. And then we're going to lay the paper on the back, starting on the bune, on the back of the blade, and we're going to drag the rice paper down the length of the blade, keeping the fingertips away from the cutting edge. Get to the tip very carefully, off. And we still have some powder left, so we're going to reapply. We're going to place the Nukigumi paper, again, starting from the back of the blade, fingertips very careful around the edge. We're going to run down the length of the blade, lifting the remaining powder off of the sword. Once we've done that, look, make sure that there's nothing left on the other side. I have a little bit left in the groove, so I'm going to do one more pass. Again, laying the paper from the spine, the back of the blade. This time I'm going to pinch into the groove and slide the Nukigumi paper down towards the tip and off. And that's going to lift off all of the contaminants. Now what you're going to get is, you're going to get some discoloration, some powder, and some dark spots. Your mileage will vary. This may be darker or lighter depending on usage and frequency of cleaning. So this is about what I expect. When it's done, we can throw that away. Now we oil the blade. There are two different ways to do this, and again, this depends primarily on personal preference, also what your sensei prefers you to do. You can either use the felt cloth that comes with your cleaning kit, apply the oil to the cloth, wipe the cloth down the blade, and you're done. I, again, as a matter of personal preference, prefer to use the Nukigumi paper, crumple it up to give it some texture. I apply the oil directly to the paper, just like I did with the bookend, and from there, we apply the oil onto the sword. But Steve, what are you doing with that felt cloth then? Well, in a moment, I'll show you. Take the sword, again, lay the paper on the blade, starting at the spine, run down the length of the sword, minding the cutting edge, minding the tip. And sometimes you might want to do a second pass. Sometimes you just feel the need to do a third pass to make sure you've got even coverage as well. So now we've got oil on the blade. I use the felt cloth that comes in the sword maintenance kit to wipe off the excess oil. So again, laying the cloth on the back, on the spine, and one single pass down the length of the blade to wipe off any excess oils, and we're done. So from there, grab our saya. Once again, I cannot stress this enough. Place the saya on the sword, slide the saya down the length of the blade. And then from there, 2 hands to put the sword away, and you are done. So that right there is the basis of how we do sword maintenance for Iaido. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can always reach out to me at edmontoniaido.ca, or preferably, you would get a hold of your local senpai or a sensei and ask for their advice and guidance on any sword maintenance or equipment maintenance issues you may have. So with that, thank you for your time, thank you for watching, have a great practice.
So, arigatou gozaimashita, Steve Senpai. We hope that you found the sword maintenance tutorial helpful. If you've got any topic ideas for the channel, for future content, please drop them down in the comment section. If you found the tutorial helpful, please let us know. And don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell, and that way you can find out when we've got new content coming up. There's a few new things coming down the pipeline. Next up will be my Saya repair video or videos. Haven't quite decided how many videos that's going to be. And then after that, there's the kurigata repair video or videos. So stay tuned for that. And then myself and some of the other club members will probably do an obi tying and a hemo tying tutorial for men and women. So look forward to that. Take care. See you next video.